We're stopping by the Square's indie booth here at Gamex in Stockholm, and we're catching up on a game that somehow flew under my radar, Pavilion, which is a fourth-person puzzling adventure about guidance and subliminal control. It's not the catchiest.
No, I know it's kind of, you know, some people really think it sounds pretentious and just out of the blue, but you know, when other people, like when you sit down and play it, it kind of makes sense in a way. So
certainly
and people get interested by it, and it's yeah.
And sort of it's I would say it's the fourth person thing is what really has that interesting twist, because it's a puzzle game. It's like you traverse and you face puzzles and you go forward, but that sort of the fact that it's not direct control makes it a little bit different.
Yeah, that was the idea. Actually, we tried to find like a short and direct way to explain the game and what it was about, and you know, everything just got really long. You know, we tended to like explain the game in like, took us 5 minutes to explain it, but then, you know, why not just try fourth person, you know, and then people, they will kind of get that it's something different, but you know, it's maybe not clear, but it kind of explains the relationship between that the player is not in direct control over the character. So that's, you know,
it's like you could say it's sort of like the point and click mechanics in a way.
Yeah, it actually is, and some people actually refer to it that way, and it, in many ways, it's kind of the same thing, but what is different, I think, is that there is a main character in there that you're not in control of, and you know, he is the main character, and that is what the thing that is different, I think, and you know, that makes it the fourth person thing.
Marriage between point and click and Lemmings or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So being the art director, I think that's another thing that strikes me about the game, is just beautiful art, and sort of, can you tell us a little bit about the concept and sort of where this comes from?
Yeah, I think in the beginning we were kind of looking for something that, it was right up in this, you know, we were in the middle of this retro trend that is still going on, I think, but so we wanted to look elsewhere for something that could inspire the game, and I've always been interested in like painters like Arnold McLean, and you know, he does these like really desolate and like strange landscapes that has a lot of realism to it, and that fit really well into like a slow-paced puzzle game where you have time to think and look at things and, you know, really get immersed in the world. So I think we wanted to create something unique and something that would really like get you into the experience and bring you into the world in a way.
Speaking of that, is it a game where the world is the story, or is there like a story on top of that as well, and who's this character that you're guiding around?
Yeah, I don't want to say too much about that right now, but it definitely is something that will unravel throughout the game. You know, you will find clues and things that you can piece together, and the actual world has a story to it, or like a history maybe, and so I want to create, you know, make the world as interesting as, you know, the player-character relationship, and like to connect everything, because that was something that we've been looking for a way to minimize the conflicts in the game, so everything is kind of merged and fit together and is coherent, and Yeah, so that is, I think you can read a lot of the game story into what you see in the environment and things like that, and how the puzzles actually play and things like that. Yeah.
I think it's one of those games that, like, once you grasp sort of the basics of it, it flows pretty naturally. You you experiment a little bit and you try different things, and you get a lot of. I mean, it's very similar to a point and click game where you can sit and you can work a little bit with your brain, and then all of a sudden everything's like, oh, it was that way.
Yeah.
But perhaps not in a sort of convoluted way as in many point and click games. Yeah. It's more natural.
Yeah, we definitely wanted a certain logic to the puzzle, so it wouldn't just be like piecing some strange objects together. You know, the character has a certain behavior and a system to his behaviors that you can, you figure it out, by looking and see how he reacts to certain things in the environment and what you do as a player. And
you were recently at Tokyo Game Show and you're here at Gamex. It's got to be sort of interesting to see how players take to the game and sort of how they explore things and how they react and if they behave the way you want them to behave or not. What's that been like?
Yeah, that was the thing that I was going to talk about actually, that the game feels really intuitive when you start to play it. It's hard to explain, as I said before. We were trying to explain it and it took forever, and just giving someone the control and then they can start playing, that is like the game is kind of explaining itself in a good way. And that was, we saw it at Tokyo Game Show and we see it here, so it, not having text in the game also makes it kind of a universal thing. Anyone can pick up the game and play it immediately. And
what can you tell us about the studio? I haven't heard about you before. Where do you come from and what's the background?
Yeah, we're both from Sweden actually, and we attended the same education back in 2006. It was kind of games oriented, and but after that Henrik moved to Japan and studied Japanese for a while and met his wife, and I started to work with animated movies, and then over the years we kept contact and talked about games and different ideas and things like that. And then in 2011 I think we had a game that was similar to Pavilion but wasn't really as good as we wanted it to. It was a puzzle game, but there was some small features in there that was really interesting, and we thought let's apply for a government grant. We have this thing called the Nordic Game Program, and we applied for that grant and we got it, and that was when we got that money, we let's quit our day jobs and start full-time on Vision Trick. And yeah, now we've been going on making this game Pavilion for a year, and yeah, just hopefully we can manage to finish it and make more games in the future, but
what's the significance of Pavilion? Because it's a strange title for a video game.
Yeah, actually it was one of these things really where it was called Pathfinder before, and that really makes sense if you look at the character. He's kind of, but we found out that was trademarked and things like that. And Pavilion actually has a small connection to the story and things like that. But
you'll find that out later on, maybe.
Yeah, but maybe it's not as straightforward as Pathfinder would have been. So, but yeah.
So the platforms you're aiming for, PS4 and PS Vita, what's it like working on those platforms?
Right now we haven't been able to get dev kits yet, but we're working in Unity. So, and yeah, I can't speak that much for the programming, but I think Henrik is actually, it seems to work pretty smooth.
Why did you aim for the platforms then, if you don't even have dev kits yet?
Yeah, it's a process, but it was actually 2 weeks before Tokyo Game Show. We contacted Sony and asked them if they could show anything Pavilion related on Tokyo Game Show, and then it ended up with them showing our game logo at the press conferences before Tokyo Game Show, and they showed the logo for 15 seconds, and that generated more marketing than we could manage ourselves for a whole year. So they've been really nice and giving us feedback and things like that. You know, it's been really cool.
I can imagine that this game could make use of touch function on both the DualShock 4 and the PS Vita. Is that something you're planning on?
I think we'll look at that more closely when we actually have dev kits and things like that, so we can test it. Because if it makes sense in the game, we will absolutely use it. But if it's just a gimmick, then I don't know if it has a point actually. But yeah.
You can have alternative control means as well. I mean, it's a very simple control scheme, so you know it would be strange not to have moving around with the thumbstick. But you know, maybe some people would prefer to have touch controls on the Vita.
Yeah, actually, we started off making an iPad version of the game, and I really think, yeah, just as you said, the controls are so simple and intuitive, so it would probably work. You know, I think we'll just test it out and see if it makes sense. Then we'll definitely use something like that.
So I guess you got some ways to go before the game is finished, but do you have any idea when we get to peek into the Pavilion?
We're aiming for late spring next year, so hopefully then, I guess. We'll probably release more. We're kind of thinking about a trailer or something like that to keep the interest up.
It's kind of a good idea to have a trailer come out, maybe.
Maybe we should do that, but that's just one of the things, you know, when you're a two-man team, you know, it's really hard to manage the company and, you know, everything like that. It just takes so much time. But yeah, definitely soon we'll have more stuff up. But as for release, I think late spring next year. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.